The end of prosperity in the West and the rebellion against the neo-feudal elite, unprecedented social upheavals could be coming. The false narrative of Western elite prosperity and the impending serf revolt, the post-war social model of the West and liberal democracy was based on the political and economic presence of a populous, financially robust middle class in conditions of unprecedented upward social mobility based on the so-called social democratic contract. This society was conventionally depicted in an oval shape, an egg, a small percentage of the elite at the top, while at the base a small percentage of the socially excluded, and in the middle a large and complexly stratified middle class. The main feature of the development taking place before our eyes is the liquidation of the middle class in a context of downward social mobility, which is expected to lead to the change of the economic and political paradigm in the so-called Western democracies after the outbreak of serious social crisis in the next phase. The impending inflationary shock and the energy crisis will be the catalyst for these developments. The bubble of the elite, everything is rosy. At the same time, for financial news and conventional economists, the future looks rosy thanks to the expansion of green energy such as wind and solar. The associated costs are falling, batteries will power the new global economy, and we're getting smarter with artificial intelligence, AI. Wages are finally rising on average, inflation is falling, household finances and corporate profits are strong, debt mountains are not yet a problem, and GDP is growing. All this positive news, quote unquote, is backed up by statistics, of course, but there is a small problem. The budgies of the fake affluence live in a bubble with their like-minded global elites who are isolated from the neo-feudalic realities of life in the real world that citizens experience. Outside the bubble of the rich, protected elites who produce the statistics and the news, the world economy is completely, truly in chaos, and so is the American economy that dominates the global financial system. What does neo-feudalism mean? It refers to a socio-economic system of structural social oppositions that divide society into two dominant strata, one in which an aristocracy owns the vast majority of wealth and collects the lion's share of the income generated, and uses this economic sovereignty to buy political and communication sovereignty. The mechanism of governance under this neo-feudalism protects and enforces the rule of elites. Cartels and monopolies freely control prices and exploit production structures. Tax revenues flow freely to the cartels. The financial elite receive tax breaks like family trusts, etc. The new serfs. In other words, in the market, the game is fixed, and the government maintains the status quo for the sake of the elite. These new serfs, quote unquote, and producers of the primary sector who have a small share of the income toil to enrich the aristocrat owners of capital. Their main assets, the family home and securities, are actually income streams for the rich who collect the interest on the mortgages and personal loans that the serfs keep paying off. The basic dynamic of neo-feudalism is for the already rich to increase their share of wealth, and everyone else sees their meager share diminish. As the charts show, the vast majority of economic gains generated by the U.S. economy flow to the top 0.1% of households. The share of the top 1% has increased by 40%, while the wealth share of the bottom 50% has fallen to 3%, essentially signal noise. Social mobility is limited to the occasional serf who enters the ranks of the technocrats, the top 5% who slavishly serve the interests of the financial aristocracy. This class lives in a self-contained, sheltered bubble, a world of privilege, residential enclaves, cosmopolitanism, and so on. Life is good in the bubble, where there is no homeless or immigrant encampment a block away, abundant liquidity and huge Prussian assets in values 104 bonds from family funds and rental properties, high pensions and other compensation, corporate stock options, and so on. growing smartly year after year and decade after decade. The interventions of central banks, the fact that all this wealth expansion is a result of unprecedented central bank intervention remains hidden. And as noted, the role of the state and the central bank is to maintain the status quo of the already rich by increasing their share of national wealth and income and offloading more very profitable debt to the serfs, such as student loans, typical. Outside the privileged bubble of the technocrats, the share of wages in economic output has been stripped from aristocracy for 45 years. The cost of housing, utilities, debt service, vehicle use, public transportation, child care, and other essentials is skyrocketing. Wages have leveled off or shrunk significantly when measured in purchasing power units, while rent has risen steadily, eating into the disposable income of serfs. Inside the bubble of the technocrat class, everything looks promising. AI will boost profits, energy will become cheaper and more abundant, and so on. Alternative energy only looks cheap because all the costs of maintaining it have been ignored, hence externalized to the entire economy. And these modest additions to the massive consumption of hydrocarbons do not actually replace hydrocarbons, they just add more energy to be consumed. The bill is high. Thousands of old wind turbine blades pile up in West Texas. The models used by elite economists hide the significant problems with solar or wind energy. In other words, conventional economists and other technocrats maintain their privileged bubble by clinging to the delusionally disconnected picture of the real world. There's always a flurry of academic studies or think tanks and corporate report findings to bolster confidence in this bubble, quote unquote, that everything is great because positive narratives are being created to leave untouched the neo-feudal structure in the mainstream industry of the technocrat class. Taylor Swift made $1 billion. OnlyFans raised $5 billion. Stocks are rising, everything is great. The new political narrative, we cannot be incorporated into the positive political narrative, quote unquote, of the elite. Of the elite is the reality of the social contradictions that are expected to be used as a political weapon by grassroots movements based on another framework of values, such as national identity and the defense of individual freedom against the effort of global surveillance and controlled societies. And this is from Banking News. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.